All right, well, it's a pleasure and honor to be able to do this. I'm going to do a quick review and then hand it back to Patrick so we have time to look over the last 10 years. First, let's look over the last 12 months. And we'll start off by looking at our New Year's resolutions. So we resolved that we would have our work groups all provide their purpose and objectives and key results, and then present to the community over the course of time, especially in February. And we did, in fact, complete those things. We had many community collaboration events, the Symposia, Europe, APAC, and Global. I'll go over that in a minute. We had a lot of virtual events too, the Developers Conference, Phenotype Phebruary, and Sisyphus Challenge, where we all worked together to push evidence generation forward. We worked hard. We set out to work hard during the year on external collaboration with those outside of Odyssey. And we set also to work inside of Odyssey in our foundational pillars, standardized vocabularies, standardized data network, and standardized open source tools, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. Next slide. At the beginning of the year, we set out the schedule for the year. So this was the schedule unadulterated from what we set out a year ago. You can see we carried out, so as Odyssey always does, right? We publish our protocols, and then we carry out our study, and we publish our diagnostics, and then we look at our results, and we publish our calendar, and then we live through the year and see how we did. And so we did do Phenotype February. We did do our Sisyphus Challenge as shown in April and May. We did have our Symposia, which I'll highlight in a moment. And it goes all the way to the end, Odyssey Year in Review, December 12th. And here we are carrying out one of our last commitments, the final one being the fun holiday party next week. Next slide. Phenotype February 2023. So what did we accomplish there? We discussed many phenotypes in the forums. Several of them finished peer review, went to the library. Several were developed, evaluated on their way to peer review. We had many debates and discussions, shiny apps on data.odyssey.org, collaborators working together, and started working on 9 publications, some of which have been published since then. So I think we did very well for Phenotype February. Next slide. And we ran our Sisyphus Challenge in April and May, the idea being, let's go cover to cover. Let's transverse the entire Odyssey evidence generation pipeline as a community. So those of us who are new to it can learn how to do it. Those of us who have been doing it can see what goes wrong. When we execute, you always learn new things when you go through it. And beforehand, our homework was coming up with research questions and identified those for clinical hypotheses. And then week 1, initiated the study. Next slide. Week 2, we did the data diagnostics for the databases. Week 3, next slide, phenotype development and evaluation. Week 3 and 4, as you know, developing phenotypes is a slow process, sometimes takes 6 months. We managed to do the bulk of this one in the 2-week period using our tools. Next jump. Now you'll notice week 5, and wait, before you go there, analysis design looks a little lonely there with Patrick's picture alone under the analysis design. That's only possible because our goal is to create a set of tools that a researcher can carry out a study by themselves. But that's only possible because of the team behind it, and that's shown to the left. So the team generates the tools that allows each of us to carry out these complex studies. That was week 5, week 6. That was the design and analysis. 6 to 8 is the analysis execution, the study diagnostics, and the evidence synthesis. And finally, in week 9, the results interpretation for those studies and generating some good evidence. So I'd say the Sisyphus Challenge was a large success. Next slide. We held our Symposia, Odyssey Europe, 3 days back on the boat, back on the ship in the Netherlands. 350 attendees, 5 plenary sessions, rapid fire presentations, 89 posters, and our 7 national nodes presenting there from Europe. So that was a large success. Then we go on. Odyssey APAC in June, 2-day in-person event, 110 attendees with diverse participation representing all groups and carrying out those 8 sessions by 30 speakers. And so that was a very large success in Australia. Next slide. And finally, the Odyssey Global Symposium, most recently this October, 430 attendees over 3 days. 430 is the most we've had in a number of years. And it was over 3 days. So normally we design it so the first day is a symposium, the other 2 days are some extra stuff. This day we had the space and created a 3-day symposium. And while there was fewer than 430 on the second 2 days, it was much more than usual. Our collaborators showcase had 137 posters, and then we had demos, lightning talks, our workshops, and our HL7 Odyssey Connectathon. So that went very well. Next slide. Now looking at our pillars for standardized vocabularies, our goal was to increase transparency and maturity of vocabulary development. Our landscape assessment went through very successfully early in the year. We created the vocabulary committee. We identified the vocabulary team. We formalized the vocabulary release schedule and roadmap and publicized that. And we began work on allowing community contributions to add to the vocabulary, and we're hard at work on the quality framework and documentation. So that went very well. Thank you to that team. Next slide. Standardized data network. We created the Odyssey Evidence Network. Now we've had kind of a data network all the way along, a voluntary network, but we felt it was fine. It was time to formalize that a little bit more, have groups that explicitly say they want to be part of the network, willing to generate evidence, and willing to share some information about their databases so we can more efficiently identify what would be good matches for our studies. And that has been proceeding forward, and thank you to the leaders there. Standardized open source tools was the third pillar we worked on, increasing adoption and ease of use of the Hades packages, carrying out a number of virtual meetings over the course of the year, culminating, well, not ending with, but also including the October in-person meeting at the Global Symposium. You see that our use of our tools continues to rise very quickly. Next slide. Last, we'll go over some other highlights. We had 100 publications during the year. Faiza Arshad's first Odyssey lead authored publication. Odyssey's largest network study with 26 databases by Erica Voss. And the FDA Best Bayesian Framework for Vaccine Safety Surveillance by Fan Bu. We had PhDs, 5 PhDs this year doing Odyssey research. Anna Ostropolitz, Lin Ying Zhang, Ross Williams, Alex Rekas, and Chung Soo Kim. And also to highlight, we announced this before, but Anna's thesis won second place of all the dissertations submitted to the AMIA, National Dissertation Competition. And our 8 new Titan Award winners, Nicole Pratt, Joel Song, Cynthia Sung, Gautam Rao, Azza Shoabi, Jesse Tong, Katie Sadowski, and the Center for Surgical Sciences. So it was a very productive year. I've only shown a fraction of what we accomplished, and we're now looking for you to tell us what we accomplished. So let's go to the next point, and I think I hand this over to Patrick.
Great, thank you, George. I'm going to flip over to see what we're looking at for our highlights from the community here. Let's present it. So we can see from the rest of you all, we've got some highlights of the year, include the symposium. It's great to see so many folks voting for the vocabulary collaboration. I wonder if those votes are coming from the team that's the vocabulary team sitting in Berlin right now, actively collaborating on the vocabulary. Shout out to them and thank you for their hard work. See a bunch of folks excited about Phenotype February from this year. We see work group collaborations spelled in multiple variants, getting some votes. We got some votes for how often, George. That's exciting. That's what warms my heart. We see the Sisyphus challenge, Odyssey Got Talent. One of the judges was particularly handsome. I'm gonna think that may have been all of the judges were particularly adorable, but even the contestants were particularly spectacular as well. We got a highlight of students going to the symposium and being excited about what Odyssey can bring to them. So that's definitely great. This highlight of the progress that the Africa work group has made and the success of the LASDAR project in Rwanda. First meeting being Odyssey Europe, a great place to start. We see formation of the Odyssey Evidence Network. And someone's cheating by going back to last year's holiday party, so hopefully they'll look forward to next week. All right, and one person liked my escape room, so that's something.